Hello and welcome to another episode of The Swing. As always, it's your boy HK, and I'm joined by my co-host, that guy Owais, on another live episode on SportsTrends. Once again, on the platform where you can watch us live, not only on our YouTube page, the SportsTrends Facebook page, but also on the SportsTrends IPTV channel, where you can catch us every Tuesday and Friday evening. We try to do 7:30. We are going a little bit later today because we wanted to talk about the Raptors game that happened just earlier today. But before we do that, I do want to bring up our sponsor, Thrive Fantasy. For those who don't know, it's the daily fantasy sports prop app where you join contests to win real cash prizes. And if you use the promo code SWING when you do deposit, you will get 100% of your deposit matched using that promo code. How you win is easy. You join contests on a nightly basis, playing off against other players, and really it's all about whether you can tell us, is LeBron going to score more than 28 points on a night? Over or under, pick that. Is Joel Embiid going to rack up another big double-double? Both of those alongside other options are what you pick, and at the end of the night, that which has the most correct options wins real cash prizes. But that being said, what we are here today for is not just about daily fantasy, but it's about what the Swing has been doing week in, week out. As I said, we try to bring you the latest content that's going on. And today, the Raptors, after splitting that Philly cheesesteak 1-1, do come back to take on the Houston Rockets and do come away with a 10-point win, which frankly should have probably been a 20 to 25-point win, but a solid win regardless, as the Rockets dropped their 10th straight loss and the Raptors are back to 500. That guy, Owais, what'd you take from that game?
Definitely one quarter where we just had an absolute lapse. I think there was a big run, but apart from that, just pretty solid. We made our rotations really good. We didn't have Pascal today, and we still played pretty well. Kyle Lowry, triple-double. What more can I say? And maybe just even Norman Powell just playing a very consistent game. Utah Watanabe, Bembry. These guys had a fantastic game. And honestly, that should be a win. If they came out of this as a loser, that would have really hurt. So,
no, absolutely. Look, that solidity was needed. And look, we can't understate the fact that we did get some of that news today with regards to health and safety protocols, which is something that the Raptors have actually, luckily been pretty clear of up till now as far as the season's concerned. But today, one of the coaching staff did test positive, which meant that 6 of the coaching staff, which were in contact tracing, alongside Pascal Siakam, all of them were held out today for health and safety protocols. We don't, again, know how long that's going to be. We'll get more results and information as time goes on. But we got Sergio Scariolo, who went ahead and became our coach for today. A beautiful first game for him, who, by the way, is the Spanish national coach, has tons and tons of experience behind him, and could very well find himself in an NBA coaching position sometime in the near future. So, great first game out for him. And Kyle, well, Bobby Webster came out and talked about how, he may not be doing player coaching due to CBA regulations, but is it really any different? He is our guy. He is our coach. He is the leader that gets everything going. And today, on a night where we were missing Pascal, he definitely showed up big, triple-double night, and just absolutely professional from end to end, even though they had that little David Nwaba stuff happening in the middle of the third quarter where they both just fouling each other.
Pure comedy. Pure comedy. I don't know what the hell was going on between the two. It was almost like who can flop better. That's what I saw.
Well, you know what? Sometimes you need to do what little rest is required when, Kyle, that's how he load manages. All right, gets on the floor, takes and comes back up, pops right back up, gets the booty going, and drops another trip dub in what is now, again, franchise leading for him. I believe that was his 13th or 14th triple-double. I'll have to recheck the stats on that.
That would end up being his, I believe, 13th.
Yeah.
So he ties, actually, insane stats. Sorry, you wanted to mention it?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So the crazy stat about that is Kyle Lowry has 13 triple doubles, the franchise of the Toronto Raptors in total, apart from Kyle Lowry, have 13 triple-doubles.
So there you go. When we talk about who the GOAT is, that just adds another nail to that coffin where it's pretty much it's done. But looking behind you, I see a little number 24 that's there in the back corner as he drops his second 30-point game of the season as Norm continues just an absolute, I wouldn't say a revelation of a season because he's had an incredible run as of late, but really as a starter, he's definitely found himself. And I joke about it in the group, but he's got a little bruise going on there. I see how he probably got it because he kept smacking himself in the head with the ball late down when he fell. But it's definitely growing every game. I'm pretty sure it's a third eye by now because the court vision that he's got going now, it's definitely a high level of maturity to his game that, you know, just keeps getting better game by game. And we're really starting to see, I would say, not that inconsistency that we used to see from Norm. Now we can get this kind of proficiency night in and night out.
Yeah. One of the things I have to really applaud Norm on is just his almost ability to redefine his actual game. So, if you take a look at when he first started the league, he was a slasher and that's it. Very athletic, kind of like a Russ. And we were really excited. And then he also had a great defensive presence. But he added the 3-ball to his game. It took almost 2 to 3 seasons for him to develop it. And now that he has it in his arsenal, he's able to even, slash effectively, but also score high volume threes. Yeah, a night in and night out basis. He's a great corner specialist, and honestly, anywhere pull up, if you got a play set up for him, you can expect that to be cash.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Armstrong was talking about it earlier today, just how his mechanics have pretty much become so much more consistent over his career to the point where now it's just a very smooth flow. That idea of getting that ball into the rhythm and getting there. He just looks rhythmical every time he goes up for a shot, which definitely is, contributing to his percentages. And, we talk about Malcolm Brogdon earlier having that sneaky 50-40-90 season that no one's talked about. Norm isn't too far off from there. He's 48% from the field, 43 from 3, and at 89.5% from the free throw line. So just been a ridiculously efficient season for him. And, for a Raptors team that was thinking about where are we going to get our scoring from? Where is it that we're going to get consistent points outside of Kyle, Freddie? Norm has definitely stepped up and shown that he can be that guy for them. And it's going to be really big for them going forward.
Absolutely. And, it's just really nice to see that, the guys that we've really developed over the years are starting to, you can see the fruits of that patience and that tree that we grew in the 905 and summer leagues and then eventually the Toronto Raptors. So
no doubt.
Yeah. But anyway, let's move forward to something of a more exciting topic because, the Houston game was pretty much a blowout from the beginning. To be honest. 10 straight losses. There are some players that will not be competing in the All-Star game. And so the replacements have been announced. Did you want to kind of mention who those were?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, we talked about last week that we did have, both the Eastern and the Western reserves get announced out there. Well, funny enough, it's not the reserves. That's the problem. But the captain on the Eastern Conference, Kevin Durant, was just announced today that he is going to be out until after the All-Star break, which does mean that a replacement must be announced, who happened to be one of the 2 Indiana Pacers that we said definitely did deserve to get in. Damonte Sabonis is going to be the representative for the Indiana Pacers as they get their guy into the All-Star game. I mean, he's just had an absolutely incredible season. We talk about how Nikola Jokic is in the running for the MVP, how his court vision has pretty much, surpassed 95% of the guards that are out there alongside everything else that he can do. Domantas Sabonis is a very similar kind of player, very just incredibly gifted, incredibly shifty, especially in the post. And the thing is, his moves are just so refined to the point where he just has the ability to not only gauge very quickly whether it's best for him to go up or get that pass going, but the proficiency with which he gets his passes. And I mean, that's coming out now. He's essentially leading the team in assists alongside Malcolm Brogdon. They're both in that 6 assist range, and definitely a two-headed monster. So congrats to Damonte Sabonis, who is going to be replacing Kevin Durant, but not as a starter. In fact, it's been named that Jason Tatum is going to be the guy that goes.
No way.
Yeah, so Tatum's going to be the one to replace Kevin Durant in the starting lineup. Not that it really matters.
No, that doesn't matter. But does Durant still end up picking the team?
See, we don't know that's. I mean, it makes sense logically that now that you have the starters that are there, you can just kind of draft from the beginning. Except Durant gets an extra pick at the start, I suppose, or you just kind of assume that Durant is Tatum and that pick is done. But beyond that, I believe the draft is going to go as normal. I don't see why a hamstring injury would prevent some dude from being able to draft. And he could use a little bit of magnesium to be able to get it going, because that guy Owais is always, look at that. I don't know if we're going to be getting called up for some of that advertising, but whenever that guy Owais needs that little bit of extra boost, you definitely get the magnesium pills in there.
We use CanPrev. There you go.
Is that going to be one of the sponsors? We gotta get them on there.
Gotta get them on. I'll talk to their people. They'll talk to us. We'll get something going.
I like that. Well, Most Ramdon, thanks once again for joining us. But that takes care of the replacement on the East. On the West, you want to talk about the guy who has stepped in?
Yeah, absolutely. And who other than the other guy from the Phoenix Suns, Devon Booker, big guy. Exciting guy to be in the All-Star game. Well deserved. Now let's just see him get to the playoffs. That's the big thing. But yeah, I mean, well deserved. You've seen him. He's dropped 71 on a team before. You know what I mean? Guy has an incredible offensive toolkit, has been doing it consistently for years and just taken over games. And now he's got the opportunity to go back to the All-Star game and do it again. Yeah,
and look, Devin Booker was definitely one of those guys that, as we talked about the fact that there's just so much talent, especially on the West when it comes to the kind of guards that you have out there. So in a way, as much as it's saddening to not have an Anthony Davis represent you in the playoffs, at the All-Star game, the guy who hit the winning shot in the last All-Star game to ice it just on one of the, as we said, most memorable All-Star games that we had. Even though he's not there, I actually kind of like that these injury replacements are coming through, because you're getting guys who are absolutely deserving and not in any way limited by the 24. And I know that's been coming up actually a lot, and I think that's an interesting topic to talk about. We're seeing more and more tweets from guys who are really recognized and renowned analysts in the NBA, just talking about how the talent has gotten to such an extent that is it really fair to only have those 12 all-stars on each side? And they reference the fact that obviously the league has expanded, and those expansion teams in the past, they've gotten better and more people are able to get in. But the number of all-stars have remained the same for many, many years. So it's interesting. I mean, I'm totally down for it. I think it also highlights the fact that there are guys who otherwise wouldn't get that opportunity, rather than these guys who are just going to be getting in again and again and again. So, I mean, get it. I would say 15 guys are on an NBA roster now. Why not have 15 all-stars on each side and to really showcase the level of talent that's there in the NBA? What do you guys think?
I don't like – see, the thing is that would be beautiful, but it's like this. You want to make sure that everybody has a decent amount of time that they're actually playing. When you go up to a roster of 15 players, having 10 minutes of this guy, 10 minutes of this guy, it doesn't really make any sense to me. So I want to see more of the best players in the world. You get what I'm saying? The more you add, the less minutes that means for everybody else. So to me, I'm like, look, I understand this. And that's actually such a great thing. If you think about it, like 10 years ago, you had maybe a player from every single team that, every single team that had like an elite talent, that would make it to the All-Star, no problem. But after that, you're like thinking, okay, the next like 3, 4, 5 picks, who would it be? And even then, technically wouldn't even really consider them to be all-stars in today's day and age. But now you have almost a player pool of arguably 20 guys in each conference that are just purely elite. And so that in itself is ridiculous. But again, I would not want to change the way the All-Star game's kind of played. with the 12-player roster. I just want to see that top echelon of players get extended minutes and just see the chemistry happen.
Yeah,
extended time. Right? That's not a bad boy. My boy Rico, Uncle Rico, joining the podcast today. That in itself, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys don't know, this guy is a legend in Toronto. You guys think about TFC and you talk about the Raptors. This guy is, behind the scenes kicking its butt. Why do you think we have a championship? Because Uncle Rico told the boys, go get a championship. And that's why it happened.
There you go. Go get a chip. And, that's obviously great advice. And this may also be a great suggestion on there because I totally agree. Look, for years and years and years, we've had all-star games, first of all, that have been just plain boring because no one's caring about what's going on. Last year's format helped bring that back a little bit. And I'm totally down with extending the time. I mean, it's the only – on a regular all-star year, that's the only event that happens on that day. Is something that you look forward to where you're seeing, as you said, all the great talent get that opportunity to be able to do it. So, definitely any kind of situation in which you could get guys more time, get guys more opportunity. And also, as we talked about, the fact that all-star picks are definitely a big part of a player's legacy. I think that's something that is, one of those things that, especially for guys that may not get in on an ongoing basis. I think back to previous years, as funny as it is, like Lou had that year where he averaged about 22 points a game and everyone was talking about how he potentially could get in, but there was just too much talent to be able to do that. And Lou, as much as he's a bucket, is not going to get that many opportunities to be able to do that. And he's obviously not going to get an all-star pick now. So, one of those guys getting that one opportunity in there, it would have been nice. I think I get what you're saying, but I think something like this suggestion where we get more time, get more opportunities for these guys to get in, I'm down for it. Let me know what you guys think.
Imagine that. Just add more time.
There you go. Sometimes it's as simple as that. It's a quarter. Why not? If we can change the format to go ahead and get that fixed and also get that much talent in there, I am absolutely for it. And on that topic of putting strain on players, I think that's also an incredibly big point, especially now because we just talked about those two guys that are going to be missing now for the All-Star game. And as you guys know, the league just unveiled the second half of the season schedule as well, which, again, we didn't have for the first half of the season because of the uncertainty that continues to surround this entire season. And we didn't know how many games that are still postponed, when they're going to be made up. But what we do know is that we are still going for the 72-game season. We are still going to be following this incredibly hectic schedule as far as back-to-backs are concerned. I mean, just looking at the Raptors as an example, we have 38 games that are going to be coming up in that second half of the season for us, 5 of which are going to be back-to-backs. And there's a number of situations where we're going to have like 3 games in 5 nights, 4 games in 6 nights. Like it's getting to the point where we're seeing these injuries coming up. And I mean, like Owais talked to me about Anthony Davis now. They say it's precautionary, but he's gone until at least the All-Star break, and the Lakers are starting to get on a legit losing streak and even taking a beating from Portland right now.
Yeah, man. I mean, you think about just the impact of these players and how important they are to the product of basketball, right, as a whole. And it's just unfortunate, whether it be COVID or just, and, over the years, we've actually seen more and more injuries that come from like that's the ACLs, Achilles, and things of that nature. And that's really because I feel like the way that people have been training now has just, impacted the bodies in a way that probably wasn't, it's just not as physical anymore. It's more like shifty. So, the exercise are kind of like that. But I mean, the strengthening is kind of taking a backseat to more of like the pyro and whatever else. And I feel like that's causing the injuries. People like, you take a look at a guy like Kobe. Kobe always said like, you look at Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry's like hardly had that many injuries in his career. And what does he do? He does just pure strength training. You know what I mean? Another few guys like LeBron. LeBron's all about his strength training as well, right? Like get big and don't try to be, all over the place and more on the, I guess, I don't know what the word is. I can't think of the word. But
Well,
anyway,
I get what you're trying to say is that, especially from the guard's perspective, just with this pace of play and the pace of guard play, the amount of times you have to stop on a dime and change directions, the amount of times that you have to pretty much like those quick step backs and all that takes a lot of toll on the lower body. And we're seeing more and more of these quad strains, Achilles strains, calf strains, and they're putting players out for a more extended period of time. So all of these things definitely start to add up. And, there's a reason why, as much as load management was a joke ongoing for now, the fact that it's happening to such an extent is because this is a legitimate concern where, burnout is something that could very well happen, especially on these star players who, as we said, have a smaller window in which they can be absolutely incredible. And it's really hard to be able to deal with the rigors of the season. So, whether it comes down to once we get back to regular season lengths, whether it will actually be maintaining this 72 game length, but over a longer period of time. Because the biggest thing to me is getting rid of these back-to-backs. And I know,
100%.
yeah, the TV deals are huge for it. There's a reason why they happen. I mean, as much as the players are getting strained, we get to get eyeballed on the TV on a night in, night out basis, getting to see our guys. So that's definitely a concern. But player health matters. And if we want to be able to see the greatest players play for as long as possible, as much as LeBron getting to year 18 is such an incredible achievement, and the fact that he's doing it at this high level, the reason why it's called up again and again is because it's not that common. It's not something that a player of that size, a player of that athleticism will live for that long. So it's a longer conversation to have, but definitely something of interest.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that really reminds me of a point. Actually, it was, I think LeBron James, who had posted somewhere on social media where it's like, look, without the recovery period, like literally for a basketball player, the most important thing isn't necessarily the practice, the weight room, and things of that nature. It actually ends up becoming the recovery time, right? So, a lot of the time, especially right now, you're seeing too much going on and not enough time to recover. Back-to-back, they're going to kill you. And you've seen it even in the Raptors product. You take a look at, some of the back-to-backs we've played. We've basically been shot on legs.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that, you have to appreciate about the Raptors right now is that they play hard from start to finish, right? With the defensive and offensive games. There's a lot of teams that won't even play defense or play very minimal, aggressive defenses. Like they won't play those. So what ends up happening is they have a lot more energy towards the end of the game. But the Raps, you can see, are burnt out, and they're doing this even on the back-to-backs. So it's only a matter of time before it gets really bad. But you're talking about the Raptors having a lot of games. Dude, I was just looking at the Houston Rockets schedule. They have 10 back-to-backs before the season ends. That in itself is just ridiculous.
Exactly. And they're the ones who have had the most games postponed as well with regards to health and safety protocols. So it's going to be taxing, man. It's tough. And that's where you're going to start needing to call up more and more players from the G League and finding more ways to potentially extend roster sizes so you can get healthy enough bodies out there. Now, speaking of the G League, there is something that I do want to talk about, and it was a bit controversial that came out today. Yes, incredibly controversial, and something that's going to be now investigated further with the NBA as we've gotten that information, which is Jeremy Lin has come out and talked about how, with all the talks about how much there is a focus in the NBA about equality, how much there's a focus on Black Lives Matter, and absolutely. There's also other guys that do play in the league, other races that do play in the league, and other cultures that are not necessarily getting that same level of protection in the NBA. And Jeremy Lin today brought out that he's been regularly called coronavirus as a nickname for him, and now it's being investigated. And I was speaking about it earlier with a couple of friends about how the league could potentially handle this, and I think this is actually one of those scenarios where the league in many ways has room to make up, especially considering the fact that we just went over the Masai case. We talked about it in our last podcast, where Adam Silver in many ways has to backpedal on the fact that he towed this neutral line, tried not to take sides, all of that, and in the end basically made it look like that he was almost blaming Masai for not dealing with a situation that obviously was something that was not in his control. It was something that we're now finding was the police officers fault through and through. So, I mean, you tell me how should the NBA handle this? Because I have a certain, few ideas about how it should be going, but it's tough. It's a tough scenario.
Honestly, I mean, it comes down to, the same thing, the same way that the NBA would handle a situation like that. Let's say, someone says something wrong, out of line, just especially during game, like technical foul, you're getting fined, you're going to be talked to, or at least like have a conversation within like the teams and the organizations to let them know, like, racism and things of that nature are just not acceptable. And if you were caught, basically racially slurring or almost like using a pandemic, and that's just ridiculous. So the responsibility is on the team's management to enforce that equality, that respect, because basketball is all about respect. There's shit talkers and stuff like that, but those assets in the old days, right? That's not going to happen anymore, and it shouldn't cut it. So I feel really bad for a guy like Jeremy Lin, who went overseas to continue his career, right? Yeah. And look, he's trying to make a comeback, and then you hear something like that. It's just not acceptable. It's not right. And given what's happened as a result of something like that, you would expect people to have a little bit more sympathy towards the whole pandemic.
Yeah. And like you said, it's tough to be able to enforce. In my opinion, it should be one of those where it's straight game suspension, alongside in that suspension time, make them do community work with these cultures, learn more about it, right? It's all about getting that global awareness, all of that, which is important. So, definitely sad news. Hopefully the NBA's investigation does get some solid results and solid follow-ups that's going to happen, because that's going to be important if we are to see real progress across the board. Now, that being said, we just talked about how Anthony Davis missing has been huge for the Los Angeles Lakers. They could potentially, fall out of a certain seeding where they want to be. Not that I necessarily think that that's a huge problem for them, but on the other hand, we talk about the consolidation of talent that the league has got to this point. And we just talked about in the last podcast a little bit about the Brooklyn Nets announcing themselves, like truly getting to a point where their offense is clicking to such an incredible level. And, at times you think about the fact that having three of those guys may actually make the offense more difficult. I mean, it hasn't necessarily, because James Harden has taken that point guard responsibility and really focused on making his teammates get the right shot, get in the right spots. But with Kevin Durant out, they have really taken that almost personally and taken it to the next step, because apart from sweeping the Western Conference road trip, they have just been absolutely incredible. Just to talk about how well the Brooklyn Nets have been playing up till now.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the main things that people had an issue with originally was like, oh, this is a 2K team. You know what I mean? A 2K team. They're going to dribble, and then score buckets. And then you saw the way that the Brooklyn Nets played. And actually, there's a lot of great ball movement there. And when they need to play isolation ball, they will play isolation ball. So, I mean, from an offensive standpoint, just honestly, James Harden has changed the identity. Brooklyn was a great offensive team prior to that. And then you add and take away. First of all, let's just say you take away, and then you add a guy like James Harden, and it actually looks even better than it was prior to, guys like LeVert and Jake Allen being there. That is, to me, unfathomable, because they don't even have a big. They got Bruce Brown playing that 5 spot sometimes. Are you kidding me? And they're still kicking butt. And so, again, we talked about reps. We talked about this earlier in our podcast that, a team like that is well coached. You could say that Steve Nash is a rookie coach, but he's with Mike D'Antoni, and these guys know system basketball. I mean, if there was anything that was the definition of system basketball, it was the Phoenix Suns back in the day, right? And so now you take those IQs, you add it to a team like Brooklyn, with 3 of the top scorers in the league, and then 2 of the like at least one extra shooter who just shoots lights out, like Joe Harris.
Yep.
And you have yourself an pure offensive team. And so what I love about that is the defense then came into question. Like, oh, these guys don't know how to play defense. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, but that's something. Defense is something that over time gets better when you play with people more. You learn their tendencies, you learn where you got to help, and now their defense is decent enough for their offense to carry the game. If that makes any sense, right? So, boom, that's it.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's just one of those where I maintain from what it was earlier that the Nets are the team to beat as far as not only the East is concerned, but just altogether the front runners for the championship. And a lot of that absolutely has to do with their investment in depth. And then remember that even outside of the guys that they have now, they're still missing Spencer Dinwiddie, who's gone for the entire season with his injury as well. So that's big. And then we talk about now the potentials that could be coming in, and we just saw Demarcus Cousins get his separation with not the Brooklyn Nets, with the Houston Rockets. And they praised his professionalism, they praised his ability to keep himself fit and really get himself ready, because Demarcus Cousins has got to be, in my mind, one of the unluckiest players in the entire NBA world. Apart from the fact that he was set to receive a max superstar extension when he was on the New Orleans Pelicans, then had that unfortunate Achilles injury, couldn't get himself back. And I think that was in many ways a chain effect, because that Pelicans team was definitely setting up to make some real noise with Anthony Davis and him. And then once that didn't happen, once Demarcus Cousins then went to the Warriors, couldn't stay healthy there either. And it's just one of those situations where you just have so much that he can offer still to the NBA world. He's not that star anymore. He's not fully Boogie anymore. But what he does offer is that capability to be dominant for stretches of time where you need that little extra push. We saw that with Houston when they were fully healthy. Houston actually looked like a very, very decent team. They have 10 straight losses now. I don't think that's representative of the quality that team has, but when they had Christian Wood going, when they had Demarcus Cousins going, that was definitely a solid team. But now with Demarcus Cousins getting that mutual separation, it sounds like he could be going to the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, there's no confirmed yet. There are other teams still in the mix. The Lakers were in the mix, though they also just signed Damian Jones as their backup center. So I don't know if that necessarily puts them out of the sweepstakes, but we'll see. But all of these teams that could potentially be looking, I mean, Kevin obviously has come out and mirrored my thoughts where I think he's going to the Nets. But where do you think, Owais, he would not only be best to end up, but what team could use him?
Even a team like the Raptors can definitely use a guy like Demarcus Cousins, right? Given the situation of them having trouble with their bigs. Aaron Baines actually played a stellar game today, I would say. But apart from that, he still has a lot of improvement to do. Whereas you put in a guy like Boogie, who kind of has the same mentality as a lot of these other guys, and it's like, okay, could be a great fit. But do I realistically think he would ever come to the Raptors? No. You think about the Nets, that's a perfect fit for him. He's also someone who's trying to get that chip. He almost had one with Golden State, but again, Toronto stopped him. So could this be a reoccurring theme if the Toronto Raptors and the Brooklyn Nets make the playoffs, are in the same round as a matchup? Who knows? But what we do know is there's still a lot of game that DeMarcus Cousins has left. And, if anything, having guys like Kyrie and Durant on the same team who also have been coming back from pretty decent, decent's a horrible word, but pretty extensive injuries. They can empathize with the situation, but really build them up and, give them the confidence and the almost the support that, a guy coming back and trying to resurrect his career and win a chip really could do. And, Boogie being a bully, he could bully people in the paint. You guys forget, at one point, he was probably the best big in the league. He could shoot it, he could pass it, he could rebound, and his post game was elite. So, if he even does half of that, Brooklyn's in a good spot.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, first of all, he's not required to do all of that on Brooklyn, which is probably for the best because, as we said, in a situation where you want to essentially the whole idea of all these guys that are coming in to add to the depth is that you already have pretty much all these boxes covered, but you just need to be able to use the strengths of these guys in limited stretches to really help push you over the top. And that's exactly what Demarcus Cousins does. And to me, Brooklyn, 100%. 100% where he should go.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. I mean, apart from that, like you think about all the other teams in the East, and we said this before, but I think it needs to be mentioned again. Any one of those teams, I mean, it comes down to matchups. So even if Brooklyn does pick up a guy like, Demarcus Cousins, matchups. So am I as confident as you guys making like that completes the road to the championship? No. I will say, just hold your horses. We'll find out when playoff basketball begins, because again, injuries, the crazy schedule coming up. How does that come into effect with guys like Durant who need the rest, or Irving or Harden or even Cousins? So like, how do you get these guys to mesh and things of that nature? There's so much that's involved. Hoopers will figure it out, but you need the reps. And if the reps are coming in a night in, night out basis, it's a double-edged sword. The recovery won't be there, but the chemistry might. So who knows?
True.
But hopefully everybody stays healthy. We want to see an incredible playoffs this year.
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited to be able to see the playoffs this year. And as you said, matchups are going to be absolutely crazy and absolutely important. And speaking of matchups, one of the key matchups that we want to be able to really highlight, apart from the fact that, as I said, James Harden has been on an absolute tear, is the Philly matchup, which I do want to be able to bring out here.
Yeah, I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up right here.
You got that?
I got it. Just let me take control. Take that one off and start the other one. And we'll start right here. So this is game 2, Philadelphia 76ers versus Toronto Raptors. Now, this is a back-to-back with them, and the Raptors, as great as they have been, also realize that, night in and night out, you got to be consistent perimeter defenders. And quite early in this game, they let a guy like, it's always those really weird guys that, you would never expect to score. Like with Boston, it was Ojale. And then you get a guy like Korkmaz put up like a quick 16. And I'm like, why? Why does this happen all the time? But credit to the Toronto Raptors, because despite being down by almost 20 at one point, they came back, and they came back with a vengeance. And, I feel like a lot of this has to go down to fatigue. And this loss, I actually took as a positive. The way they fought back at the end, I was very, very proud. And I think that if the Raptors do get a series against the Philadelphia Sixers, I think we're going to be hot. And then this foul was that absolutely just had Norm going wild, but I was so mad.
Yeah, the refs are always going to play their part. That was as clear as it gets. But I said the matchups idea is 100% a big thing. I go back to the teams that I wouldn't necessarily want from as a Raptors fan perspective. Obviously it's not a year where we're necessarily gunning for the championship, but you're going to be getting into that scenario where you want to do your best possible. Most likely, if everything stands, we're facing off against the Indiana Pacers, which I actually like as a matchup. What I wouldn't like as a matchup is the 76ers one, which is one I wouldn't. I don't like the fact that, one, as much as Embiid has been historically kind of held at bay as far as Toronto's concerned, that's definitely not going to be something that we see on an ongoing basis. Even though in this game here, we still held Embiid to about 40% from the field, which is very solid for what we have doing. But just that capability to be able to absolutely destroy us on the boards when possessions are going to be at a premium. And Rico's talking about here as well, where that's going to be the same kind of problem if the Brooklyn Nets come up against the Philadelphia 76ers, where it's just a scenario where you need to limit second chance points. And second chance points killed us in the Boston series. If you look back, That was one of the key metrics in which we weren't able to take advantage. And, we let Daniel Tice out-rebound us. We let Time Lord come in, Robert Williams, and just absolutely destroy us. And you should get to that scenario where you're going to have, games, especially against defensive stalwarts like the Philadelphia 76ers. It's not going to be a 110, 120 point game. It's going to be 90 to 80. And in that kind of scenario, I just don't like a matchup where, Philadelphia is going to be able to keep you at bay to that extent. That being said, and much like what Kevin is talking about, the fight. Talk about that fight, Owais.
Yeah, man, what a comeback. I feel like, given that we didn't have a great shooting night that game, look at these cuts to the basket. They started deciding that, we got to crash, and because the shooting wasn't working that day. But also, forget the offensive spots. I'm talking mainly the defensive just clinic that we had put up to get us back into that game. There were moments where Philly was not scoring at all. And this is when I love the Raptors the most. Being able to get those stops and then igniting the offense in some sort of transition, right? And that's what we saw here, man. And I was so impressed with that comeback. I don't know how else to explain it, but the identity of the Raptors, I'm telling you, is not coming from an offensive standpoint. It's always been a defense first mentality, and then everything else makes sense after. And so even if we lost this game, like, I still hold my head high. Yeah. Even to the dying minutes, we didn't give up. And I said to myself, like, this is what we need. That dog mentality, that fight mentality. If we have that, literally there's very few teams, like, because we're so good at defense, it becomes a mental game, right? Especially in the playoffs. If you're going in a deep series and you get an offensive team to struggle with the defensive team, dude, it gets to their head. Same thing happened to Toronto against Boston, right? Like, they got into our heads with just great defensive schemes. And Toronto's not necessarily a bad offensive team. We just look bad because of how well they played, and it got to their head. Now, if Toronto does the same thing, and I swear to God, any team's up for it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think Rico's bringing up a great point on that same, because it's going to be about, I agree. I don't think that we have it in us to be able to do that. We'll probably get to an Eastern Conference semifinal, have a good, tough matchup, and that'll be about the extent as currently constructed, the furthest that we can go. But that's exactly, I'm totally okay with that, because we're doing it on the back of developing all of these guys to a point where, again, you want to be in that scenario where we have uncertainty, first of all, with Kyle, right? As much as we aren't trying to talk about it, the Philly report came out. Could Kyle be going there? It was shut down by Kyle's agent themselves, but these rumors are going to keep going until the trade deadline passes, which is still about a month away. March 25th is the trade deadline. It's just one of those things where, we could see teams really changed up beyond what we are seeing up till now. So, as currently constructed, the Nets may look like the front runners. Philly may look like an absolute, difficult matchup to be able to get out there. But in the end, it's going to come down to, again, on paper is everything, but when it comes to the playoffs, you throw all that out the window and you have to just show that consistency.
And so Kevin says he agrees with Rico and you that, unfortunately, he doesn't see us moving on against the Philadelphia Sixers in a playoff series, even if it's 7. But, at the end of the day, what we want to see, like you said, it is frustrating, a season where you go and you see a team that, had once won a championship and could potentially have repeated last year if given a better situation. Like, come on, because of pandemic, things got a little bit weird, but I still thought we were a great team. Enough to at least make, I think we could have taken any team in the East last year. Honestly, any team in the East. If Pascal even played half of his production of this year, dude, the series was over in like 6, man. Come on. At least
I'd love to say that because I had obviously picked us to be able to advance on there. And I said it was all
and then we
based.
matched up better against Miami. We would have torn Miami apart. Come on, man. Anyway.
Which is funny because we literally just lost to Miami the next day where Jimmy Buckets just did what Jimmy Buckets does.
Yeah, but you have to understand is that it's like we are a tired bunch right now.
Of course.
That's literally it. Jimmy's been resting for like a month on vacation. Come on, man. Stop with this. So anyway, the point is that the Toronto Raptors, despite the awful start and, the things that we're going through right now, we should be incredibly proud as fans to see just the development of a team that has really no outstanding bench, but just an identity, a mentality, and the will to continuously get better every single game. And so as much as, people are going to laugh at this because on the WhatsApp groups, I have this thing. I have to say bad things about the Raptors for them to win. If I don't say bad things on this WhatsApp chat, we won't win. So
really?
Essentially, it's a superstition I have. I've done it forever. Okay. So what I want everybody to take a look at is look at the way we play as a team and then just go into the individuals. Look at Pascal, the way he started, but then look at how much more aggressive he's gotten and how much better he's played.
Yeah.
Right. Then you look at Fred VanVleet. I didn't expect him. He looked like a silent leader at one point, just by action, playing, scoring, and, doing that steady Freddy. But I've seen emotion from him this year. I've seen him telling people what to do and how to do it, right? Similar to Lowry.
Yeah.
And so that humbles me as a fan as well, because I'm like, okay, he knows now, like, I'm a part of this team. I am the future. I need to be that leader to let these guys know that, the identity of this team is no bullshit. Sorry.
Yeah.
Play hard all the time. Mistakes, limit them.
Yeah.
That's it.
And it's interesting that you say that because it fits in line with something that Kevin Garnett used to say way back, that it's once you get that contract, once you've got that money, people talk about playing hard in your contract year, playing hard to get that. But it's actually the other way around, because now is when the work truly starts, because you have now been given that faith that the team believes in you, the management believes in you, and all of that is now in place. So now what can you do to take that next step? And Freddie, to my mind, has definitely taken that next step as far as that leadership is concerned. And his performances are obviously what we're seeing on the floor here. In my mind, a snubbed all-star, but that's the kind of thing that motivates them, and that's how it all works. But as Kevin said, and I absolutely agree, the identity, the heart, that capability to never die, to just keep fighting till the end is what's made them.
I think you froze. So in case you guys aren't able to see how I'm speaking right now, I do want to mention something really interesting as well. And that is that we have Malachi
fans out of.
Oh,
I think we had a slight disconnection over there, but that's fine.
Connected for a little bit, but that's okay because you're back. Continue what you were saying.
No, so that's pretty much it, and this actually was going to be where I go ahead and end off. But if you have any closing points, then we're going to get into what we got to talk about next time, because you were about to get ice bucketed, my friend.
Yeah. So this week, unfortunately, I did lose that All-Star Challenge where. I just try to be different because, you don't want to see people picking the same people, but also I want to give credit where I feel like it needs to be deserved. This is more of an emotional situation versus a logical, practical situation. So people are like, why'd you pick Jordan Clarkson, you idiot? And I'm like, because that man he's balling out. Okay. He is balling out. He's actually arguably, you mentioned this yourself. I heard it from your mouth. A runner for the Sixth Man of the Year. Okay. So, stop the hate. He's also just emerged as a incredible, he's always been an attack first mentality, but just been more mature and efficient. And you talk about other guys, I'm just excited for all that, but I am going to, unfortunately, because I get really hot.
Yes, sir. There you go.
I'm going to be iced out in a nice little ice bucket challenge. And what better way to have my British counterpart, Salman, my brother-in-law, to do it, the guy who gets me hot the most. I don't know why I winked, but
what is that? What is that?
That's for you fans to decide what that wink was. I don't know.
But yes, so to break it all down and whatever weirdness that Owais is getting out there, because he lost how many All-Star picks, I don't care how much you said you want guys to be in. I have guys that I want to be in as well. But you know what? I pick the winners because that's what HK does. And because I won and because you fans decided what the challenge was going to be, as we come to the tail end of winter, we get to have Owais really just take in the vibes of that tail end.
Hey,
and Salman is going to do that.
Salman will do that, but I will tell everybody, if you haven't checked out my YouTube channel, check out that guy Owais. I do take ice cold showers anyway. So guess what?
You've been prepping for this day.
He'll be prepared. He was ready. He knew this was going to happen. And so over the summer, I was practicing for this day. Check out the video.
We'll get to see how he practiced. And yes, that guy Owais had a 30-day challenge, I believe, where he just took ice cold showers. So let's see if that works out well when you get iced on here. But with that in mind, we are coming to the end of this week's episode of The Swing. As I said, as always, we come Tuesdays and Fridays. I'm going to try to make the next one at 7:30 as well. And we may even have a special guest joining us for a little bit more insight about, as you said, all that's happening in the basketball world. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for Oasis Challenge, which we'll definitely have on video to show you on the next one. And as always, keep engaging with us. Join us with the conversation, not only at The Swing Podcast right up there on Instagram. Make sure to follow us there. Follow us on YouTube. And also, as always, thanks to SportsTrends for giving us this platform.
Absolutely.
Make sure to follow their page as well. And you can actually watch SportsTrends live all the time on sportstrends.tv. So, our show is on there. There's lots of other shows that go on a normal scenario. They really focus on local sports. So you get to really check out what's going on there. And we love when we get topics as well. So Kevin's talked about our Canadian ballers. We'll definitely keep that in mind and have a conversation with that. Maybe we'll have Kevin come on there and talk about that as well, because we've been waiting.
He is a Canadian baller himself.
Absolutely.
Self-proclaimed, though. See you on the courts, buddy. March Madness, another big hot topic. Absolutely. So Rico, Kevin, Seth, and everybody else who's viewing the podcast, stream, we really appreciate you guys when you come through. We love talking basketball with you. And despite I look like this today, really tired, I will say you guys woke me right up, and we appreciate that. Okay?
Absolutely. But until then, like I said, we'll see you on Tuesday. We always see you live on Instagram post-game. And until then, that's that guy Owais. This is your boy HK. It was The Swing, and we will see you next time.
High five, high five.
High five. No, this way. High five.
Lillard, long-range three. Defended by Simmons. Is this the trigger? Oh, boom shakalaka! Game series to